What if the worst day of her life was the day she met the only man who would ever choose her forever? The wind had teeth that morning, and it bit through the wooden frame of the stagecoach like an angry animal. Ella Hart braced herself inside the rattling box, her fingers tight around the leather strap as dust beat against the windows. Wyoming had not welcomed her gently. It felt as if the land itself wanted to test her before she even arrived in Dusty Ford. She stared through the filthy glass, barely able to see the blurred outline of the Bighorn Mountains. They looked like ghosts in the distance, steady and calm while the world inside the coach shook and groaned. She had come to this place for a new start, a clean name, a clean life. A chance to be just Ella Hart, the new schoolteacher and part-time telegraph operator. Nothing more, nothing less. At 24, she felt older than she should. Her past was a locked box she refused to open. Dusty Ford was supposed to be the first page of a quiet life, but the land had other ideas. The coach jolted so hard she slammed into the wooden seat. A woman screamed. A small boy tumbled into the aisle. Then came the sound that froze every breath in the coach, a deep, cracking groan, wood bending where wood should not bend. The axle snapped. The world tilted. Ella grabbed the strap with both hands, her heart punching against her ribs as the stagecoach rolled onto its side. Luggage flew. Bodies crashed together. Dust exploded through the broken window as the entire weight of the coach slammed into the dirt. Then, silence. A thick, choking silence. Ella pushed herself upright. Her head rang. Her bonnet hung crooked across her face. A child cried somewhere near her boots. The boy from earlier was pinned under a heavy crate that had broken loose when the coach flipped. His mother clawed at it with shaking hands but couldn't move it at all. Ella crawled toward them. "It's all right," she whispered, even though nothing felt all right. Then, the broken window darkened. A man's silhouette filled the frame. He moved with a calm that didn't make sense in the middle of chaos. He pried the damaged door open with one sharp pull and dropped down inside the wrecked coach as if he had done this 1,000 times before. He was tall, broad across the shoulders, dressed in worn denim and leather. Dust coated him from hat to boots. His gray eyes swept the scene fast, cool and steady. They locked on Ella for a single moment. A flicker of recognition passed between them, not the kind you understand. The kind two wounded souls feel without speaking. Then he moved past her. "Ma'am," he said to the boy's mother, his voice low and steady, a sound that seemed built for storms. "Step back. Give me space." She obeyed at once. He set his shoulder against the heavy crate, his muscles tightened beneath his shirt. With a single controlled heave, he lifted the crate just enough for Ella to pull the boy free and gather him in her arms. "It's okay," she told the crying child. "You're safe now." The man guided them out one by one, helping each passenger climb through the broken window into the open air. When he finally offered Ella his hand, she felt the strength in his calloused palm. She stepped down carefully, her boots sinking into the dust. "Thank you," she said. He nodded once. No words, no smile, just a quiet man disappearing toward his horse like a shadow swallowed by the storm. She didn't know his name, only his presence. Calm in chaos. Strong without swagger. A man shaped by something hard and lonely. She would learn later that he was Cole McKinnon, a rancher outside town. A man trying to build a quiet life after a violent past. A man who helped people without letting them near his heart. She didn't know then that they were both running from ghosts. Dusty Ford itself looked like it had survived one battle too many. A muddy street, a row of worn-down wooden buildings, a church bell that rang in slow, lonely notes through the wind. The town felt small and tired, but it was hers now, a place where no one knew the truth she carried. Inside the warm glow of Martha Lee's eatery, Ella finally felt her hands stop shaking. Martha fussed over her, fed her hot coffee, and helped her settle into a room upstairs. The first soft bed Ella would sleep in for weeks. But Dusty Ford had eyes, and one of them belonged to Ephraim Briggs, the wealthy owner of the Mercantile. He entered the eatery with a smile too wide to trust, his boots too clean for a man who lived in the West. "Miss Hart," he said, taking her hand as if he was already owed it. "Welcome to Dusty Ford. We take care of our own here." His words were warm, his eyes were cold. Ella felt a quiet warning inside her chest. She did not want his care. She wanted her freedom. Her days settled into a steady rhythm. Teaching in the mornings, telegraph work in the afternoons. She swept out an old saloon to turn it into a schoolhouse. She met families, watched children grow braver under her gentle voice. She kept her head down and stayed polite. She said little about herself, and she kept seeing Cole. From a distance, at the livery, at the blacksmith, riding through town with a quietness that felt heavy and earned. Each time their eyes met and drifted away again, two guarded hearts recognizing a familiar ache. Weeks later, one icy night, the telegraph key burst into sudden, frantic chatter. Ella leaned close, translating the coded dots and dashes. The message froze her blood. Coyote Riders. Possible attack tonight. Target, Silver Mesa Ranch. Silver Mesa, Cole's ranch. Her breath caught in her throat. She grabbed the paper and ran through the freezing night toward the sheriff's office. Sheriff Pike read the message, swore under his breath. Then the door opened behind them. Cole stood there. He heard the words. He didn't ask anything. He didn't waste a second. He turned and sprinted into the night, his coat snapping behind him like a shadow carried by the wind. Ella stood frozen in the doorway. Her warning had reached him, but something darker had reached someone else too. Fresh boot prints outside her office window. Someone listening. Someone waiting. Someone who wanted Cole dead. Danger moved across the Wyoming night like a living thing. Cole rode hard toward Silver Mesa, the warning from Ella burning in his mind. The cold air cut across his face, but he didn't slow. He knew the Coyote Riders. He had seen what they left behind. They were ghosts with guns, men who stole cattle, burned barns, and vanished before sunrise. But this time, they had picked the wrong ranch. Behind him, the snow began to fall, soft flakes melting on his heated skin. The ranch yard came into view, lanterns glowing in the windows. He didn't shout, he didn't call for help. He slid from his horse and strode into the bunkhouse. "Rustlers," he said, his voice calm but sharp. "West pasture, move." The cowboys obeyed instantly. They trusted Cole. He never wasted words, never shouted unless it mattered, and never led them wrong. Within minutes they rode out as a tight formation. A dozen men against a band of shadows. They found the rustlers exactly where Ella's warning said they'd be. A line of men pushing the herd toward a gap in the hills. The snow muted everything, turning gunfire into muffled cracks of orange light. Cole raised his hand. His men fanned out. "Spook their horses if you can," he said. "Break the herd, keep it clean." But the rustlers shot first. Chaos followed. The herd panicked, turning into a storm of hooves and horns. Cole guided his horse through the madness with a calm that came from too many years of war. He fired once, twice. Warning shots. Shots to turn horses. Shots to scatter the rustlers without killing them. That was the man he wanted to be now, not the man he had been. The fight didn't last long. Outnumbered, their plan ruined. The Coyote Riders vanished into the snow, swallowed by the night. By the time Sheriff Pike arrived, the fight was already over. Cole stood with the herd behind him, breath steaming in the cold, his eyes still sharp and searching the hills. He didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. Something in him had shifted the moment he heard Ella's message. A spark. A connection he didn't invite, but couldn't ignore. And Ella, she felt the same strange pull. The next morning, Dusty Ford buzzed with talk of Cole's success. But Ella's thoughts weren't on praise. They were on the boot prints she'd found in the mud under her window. Deep. Heavy. A man had stood there for a long time, listening to the telegraph. Someone in town knew everything she sent. Someone dangerous. She pushed the fear aside. It was her first day of teaching, and she refused to let fear greet the children before she did. She swept the old saloon again, set the benches in place, lit the stove, and welcomed the first small faces into her classroom. The O'Malley children sat in the back, shy and smudged with dust. She saw their nerves and gave them a gentle smile. But peace never lasted long in Dusty Ford. Late morning, Mrs. Gable stormed into the schoolhouse, pointing at the O'Malley children. "I won't have my daughters sitting with children like that." The room froze. Ella stood straight, her voice steady. "Every child belongs here, Mrs. Gable. This school is for everyone." The woman gasped, swept her children out the door, and slammed it behind her. Ella's heart thumped, but she didn't let her hands tremble. She returned to the lesson, looking into the wide eyes of the children who remained. Especially the O'Malley kids, whose faces were flushed with shame. When school ended, she walked into the fading afternoon light, tired but proud. Then a shadow stepped beside her. Ephraim Briggs, his smile tight, his voice thick with sugar. "Hard day, Miss Hart. I can make it easier. Private lessons for certain families. Double pay. All you must do is teach the best and leave the others to their place." She stopped walking. "I teach all the children," she said, "not a few." His smile thinned into something sharp. "Pride won't keep you warm," he said, but she walked away from him without another word. The next afternoon, she made the long, cold walk to the O'Malley cabin to encourage the children. Their mother gave her a sack of potatoes in thanks. Ella refused it, but the woman insisted until Ella felt too touched to argue. On her way back to town, a familiar shape waited at the fence line. Cole, leaning against a post as if he belonged to the land itself. "I have something for you," he said quietly. A saddle, not new, but carefully repaired, patched with clean stitches, oiled leather soft beneath her fingertips. "You did this?" she asked softly. He shrugged, looking away. "Figured the walk to the mines is long's. You need a saddle." Her chest tightened. It wasn't romance, it wasn't flirting, it was something deeper. A kind of care carved from silence and scars. "Thank you," she whispered. She invited him to supper as a thank you. He hesitated, as if unsure he deserved company, then gave one small nod. That evening, in Martha Lee's warm dining room, something changed. They spoke quietly, cautiously at first, but she asked about the horses on his ranch, and a light softened his voice. He asked about her students, and she found herself smiling more than she expected. But far away, trouble was growing. Sheriff Pike found an envelope in the snow near the Rustlers' trail. The seal on the back was from Briggs's mercantile. A clue. A warning. A thread that tied the town's wealthiest man to the outlaws. At the same time, Ella discovered her satchel was missing, the one that held her birth certificate and her mother's letter. Every piece of her secret life, fear crawled under her skin, and someone had taken it. By the creek that evening, Cole found the bag, muddy, open, her secrets exposed. He froze when he saw the name on the birth certificate. John, Blackjack, Corian. A name tied to danger, a name known across Texas, a name Ella had run from. He closed his hand around the satchel and breathed in the cold air, torn between respect and the need to protect her from a past that could kill. Before he could decide what to do, another shadow was already watching Ella from a distant bluff. A man with a limp, a man with a blue bandana, one of the coyote riders. And he was interested in one thing, the new schoolteacher. The fire that struck Silver Mesa was born from a lightning bolt, but the danger that followed it was all human. Ella worked on the bucket line until her hands bled, passing heavy pails of water down the chain of townspeople fighting to save Cole's ranch. Smoke filled the sky, heat pressed against her face. For a moment she feared the fire would swallow everything she had just begun to build in Dusty Ford. Then came the scream. Mrs. Holloway's little boy, Jed, was missing. Cole heard it too. His eyes sharpened. In seconds he was running toward the small stable by the corral, smoke rising from its roof. Ella followed, heart hammering. She saw the leaning door, slightly open. Cole kicked it wider. The boy was inside, trapped in a corner as the roof sagged with flames. Cole grabbed a water-soaked blanket and wrapped it around himself. Ella moved to the stall door, her voice firm and steady as she called to the terrified child, guiding him with soft words. Cole broke through the fire, scooped the boy up, and carried him toward the back wall. Together, with other townsmen joining in, they tore the weakened boards apart and pulled the child to safety. The ranch was saved. Jed was safe. But in the chaos, Ella's satchel, her past, her proof, her truth, vanished. It wasn't until later that night, when the embers still burned and exhaustion settled over the town, that Cole found the satchel by the creek. And when he picked it up, the open flap revealed her birth certificate, a name he recognized, a name tied to trouble. The next evening, under the soft glow of a single lantern in the hall outside her room at Martha Lee's eatery, Cole knocked on Ella's door and returned the bag. "I saw the name," he said quietly. "I didn't read the letter, just the name." Her breath caught, anger, fear, hurt, all tangled together. "You had no right," she whispered. "I know," he replied, "but someone else is looking for you, a man with a limp, a blue bandana. He was in town." Ella froze. He stepped closer. Not threatening, not demanding, just steady. "You don't have to tell me everything," he said, "but don't face this alone." Those words cracked something inside her. For the first time in her life, someone wasn't asking for her secrets. They were offering protection without a price. So she told him. She told him about the violent stepfather she fled, the mother who apologized too late, the real father whose name carried danger. She told him about the letters she kept hidden, about the shame she carried, about the need to start a life where no one judged her for things she didn't choose. He listened, silently, fully, like a man who understood broken things because he had been broken too. And when she finished, he said only 2 words, soft as a promise. "You're safe." But she wasn't, not yet. The next night, long after the last lantern in Dusty Ford blew out, the tall man in the dark duster, the one with the limp, stepped from the shadows of an alley and spoke Ella's name. He knew her past. He wanted her letter. She backed away, heart pounding, but he stepped forward again. Before he could reach her, Cole appeared behind her like a silent wall of strength. His presence alone made the stranger's confidence falter. Another time. The man rasped and melted back into the dark. Ella's knees buckled when he was gone. Cole caught her before she fell. The next day, the truth broke open even wider. Sheriff Pike, Dusty Ford's own lawman, was exposed as a traitor. He had helped plan the cattle raid. He had been feeding information to the Coyote Riders, and he was desperate enough to try for something bigger. An army payroll coach. Gold. Cash. Enough to buy a kingdom of crime. Ella received the telegraph warning first. She ran straight to Cole. Together, with the sheriff watching from the shadows, they formed a plan that put everything at risk. Ella would send a false telegraph message. She would lure the Coyote Riders to the wrong place. Cole and the ranch hands would be waiting in Devil's Gap. But Pike, unbeknownst to them, wasn't just part of the gang. He was their leader. When the trap was sprung, the canyon exploded with gunfire. Cole was grazed by a bullet. His men were pinned down. The ambush collapsed. Ella raced the supply wagon into the canyon, firing a bright flare that spooked the rustlers, horses, and shattered their attack. She saved them all. She saved Cole. But Pike and Briggs ran. They found Ella first, cornering her in the telegraph office, threatening her life, demanding the location of the payroll gold. Ella fought back with the only weapon she had. Her mind. She swung the lamp into the stove, igniting the spilled kerosene, creating a wall of smoke and fire that blinded them just long enough for Cole to burst through the door. He didn't shoot Pike. He tackled him, tied him, dragged him out. He didn't kill the corrupt sheriff who had tried to kill him. He chose mercy. One by one, townsfolk blocked Briggs's escape. Martha Lee stood at the front with a skillet like justice itself. Both men were taken. Both exposed. Dusty Ford could breathe again. The trial came next. A small church turned courtroom. Briggs tried to twist the truth. Pike tried to drag Cole down with him by shouting the worst thing he could. "Ask what Cole did in Texas." The town gasped. Cole stood. Told the truth about the shooting accident that haunted him, the man he'd killed by mistake while saving a farmer. Then a stranger stood. That farmer. The man Cole saved. "He didn't fail," the farmer said. "He saved my family." The court fell silent. Then, the truth walked into the room in 1,000 small steps. Facts, evidence, ledgers, testimonies, until Briggs and Pike were found guilty. Ella stood in the middle of that church and spoke for Cole. She spoke for herself. She reclaimed her name, her life, her dignity. When she finished, the entire church rose in applause. Afterward, the town rebuilt itself. Cole claimed a small piece of land by Cottonwood Creek. Not for cattle. For her. He carved a stake and wrote on it. Hearts, School, and Telegraph. A home for learning. A home for her. A home for their future. She married him 3 months later on their own porch. The whole town gathered to celebrate. Laughter replaced suspicion. Joy replaced fear. That night, after the guests left, Cole took her hand and slid a simple silver ring onto her finger. Inside it was carved one word. Choose. "I choose you every morning," he whispered. She kissed him, tears in her eyes. "And I choose you." Quote. Later, in the soft glow of the oil lamp, with a quiet night wrapped around their new home, he touched her cheek gently. "You still a virgin?" he whispered, the tease softer now. transformed into a memory only they shared. Ella laughed, leaning into him, her heart full and steady. "When it comes to a peaceful life, Mr. McKinnon," she whispered with a smile, "I suppose I am." She touched his chest, her voice warm. "But not for long, Darlin." Their lamp dimmed, their future began, their hearts finally rested.